And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
Yo, Lord Willin, Jeff Canarsie, Mob Talk Radio. Check it out. Yo, we stay quiet like Russell Buffalino when things will get ugly like Pepsi's death in Casino. Who do we know? No one, nobody. But we're all well respected like Della Croce and Gotti. I know wild nights, Havana nocturne. Light up a cigar and watch the spot burn. You'll get patty whacked. I'm tough like Irish dock workers. Rubber guys with guys, hooligans and block lurkers.
And welcome to Mob Talk Radio. I am your host, Jeff Canarsie, and I'm fucking exhausted. I'm not going to lie. So, if I don't sound as fucking energetic as I usually do, a lot of it has to do with the fact that with this fucking virus, you stay up all fucking night, been watching TV shows, and then fucking you're up at 11 o'clock. So, I'm rolling on like 3 hours of sleep. But either way, I'm here. I'm going to try to do this show the best of my ability, but, you know, I might lose it a bit here and there. I got some bones to pick with some people, just in terms of some of the questions I got. So what we're going to do today, and it's not going to be as long of a show as it usually is. If I can do an hour and a half today, I will. I'm just fucking beat. So we're going to get to a Q&A, and we're going to talk about a couple of things before we get there. And then I'm going to cover 2 of the remaining 4 mob hits. And then next week when we come back, it'll be a total biography in Q&A. It's just been a long week. And so here I am trying to get this out to the best of my ability. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Flannagans. Now, I've been getting inundated with messages for probably 3 months about this. And what I told everybody was I can't talk about it right now. There's just some things that need to be ironed out. And so I also said that when the time came where there could be something we could talk about, then I would tell people. And that's where we're at today. Without getting into all the logistics of it. I mean, anytime you do something creative, you're going to have disagreements. One person wants to go one way, the other wants to go the other wants to go the other way. So sometimes there's snafus, sometimes there's problems, there's disagreements. And how you iron those out is you come together and you figure out how everybody can sort of get what they want out of it and come to a mutual decision. And that's what's happened. And so what will happen from here once this fucking pandemic ends, if it ever does end, is we will go back to filming the rest of the Flannagans, the pilot episode. The pilot episode, I'd be speculating if I told you that it was going to be a runtime of 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half. I'm not sure. You never know until you get to editing and all of that. But what I can say is that we do have a few scenes we have left to film with very minute cast members. That the main cast is done. And so we will be obviously shooting down in Philadelphia a scene or 2. And we've got a couple of scenes left in New York we got to finish. And we are going to, from what I understand, auditioning more actors for stuff. But, with this pandemic, it's kind of hard to do a lot of stuff. But we're going to finish it up, wrap it up, and unleash it to the fucking public. I think it's going to be good. I've always said that. But like with anything that you do creatively, right? Sometimes you got to reshoot stuff. You got to redo stuff. And that may be where we're at. I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is the Flannagans is definitely moving forward. We think collectively, and I speak for everybody involved, I think collectively we have, I don't want to say magic in a bottle because everybody fucking says that, but I think what we have is something that is brutal. I think it's something that is the closest thing to the streets that you're ever going to see. And the story's pretty good. It's a lot of people have speculated it's about the Westies. And what I want to be clear on is it's an idea of a spillover from the Westies who are still trying to keep a firm grip on whatever they have left. So it's not a biographical, historical thing on the Westies. A lot of people have, reported that wrong. So we're going to move forward. If you're looking for a date on when it's going to come out, I can't tell you. And the reason why is because we still have to wrap things up. We still have to edit some stuff. And a lot of this is going to be contingent on when this fucking pandemic bullshit ends. So that's what I can tell you as far as that goes. And for the record, unless it's coming from me or my business partners in this, I I would be very cautious as to what you believe. Nobody speaks for the production but myself and my partners. Nobody hires any actors without, myself and my partners doing that. So any information that does come out, if it comes from myself and my partners involved in this film, then you can buy it. But there's a lot of naysaying and a lot of rumors and crazy stuff that goes around. But in any event, that's what's going on with the Flannagans. All right. So the second thing I want to talk about, which I really don't, is sort of the elephant in the room. I think a lot of people, especially in the mob groups and the shit that I see on fucking line, are talking about an article that just came out that involved John Gotti Jr. I don't have a fucking opinion on it, to be honest with you. I really don't. The reason why I'm not going to get into it is, in so many ways, obviously everybody knows that Chicky was in the Flannagans, okay? Obviously everybody knows some stuff happened with him, a relative of his, and it's just, I don't feel like I should give any validity to any of this stuff. I do have an opinion, obviously, but I just don't want to get into it. It's none of my business. I'm staying out of it. We'll see how it goes, and I'll let the fucking mob genre people have all day with it. It's just, when something isn't news to me, it's just not something I'm going to cover. I think, and I will say this, that I think a lot of assertions that people are making about Chicky are laughable. They're a fucking joke. I can't speak to anything other than Chicky, okay? But this is a guy who's not a gangster. I see everybody in the mob group saying he is. He's not, okay? And I don't understand why people are, all of a sudden thinking he's some fucking crime boss. He's not. Chicky was in a shitty situation, and however it avails itself, it will. But I think people need to be really cautious about what they believe. This is social media. This is fucking the New York Post for you, the Daily News, and all this other stuff. I'm not saying that there may or may not be portions of that bullshit story that are true or not true. I'm just speaking on behalf of somebody I do know and like, and I just think that I just think that somebody like Chicky got dragged into a bunch of nonsense that really has nothing to do with him. And I think a lot's been made out of stupid photographs and stuff like that. And like I said, I'm not taking a hard stance either way on it. Because I really, honestly, I don't give a fuck at the end of the day. I really don't care. It's none of my business. It's not my fucking problem. But if you knew Chicky, you'd know that, this is a guy who, he's a funny guy. His whole life is about his kids and laughing. And it kind of makes me a little fucking sick to see the media make him out to be something that he isn't. But that's just how it works. That's just how it works. Everybody's got a past, right? So that's really all I'm going to say about it. I'm not, if you've noticed, I haven't covered it. I'm just not going to talk about it. But I just kind of feel like, since Chicky was always good to me, I consider him my friend, that I should say something nice about him. And I think if you knew him, you'd know that the person that they're going to try to portray, it's insanity. It's fucking insanity. But like I said, I can't speak about the other part of that, and I really don't want anything to do with any of that other shit. I'll be honest with you. I'm staying fucking way north of that. It's trouble, and I don't want no part of that. All right. So the next part of this, often, as everybody knows, I get a lot of nasty emails from people, but every once in a while, I do get a nice one, and I'm not going to read it just out of respect for the person who sent it. I will say his first name. His first name is Michael, and he has a grandmother. She's 96. Hi, Grandma. And Grandma has a little bit of a history of herself with two of the biggest mob heavyweights to ever fucking live on this earth. But I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to put personal information out. But what I sort of got pretty much blew my fucking mind. Look, every once in a while, I'll get a message where somebody's parent has died, a relative has died, and then I find out that they actually listened to my show, like the last few months that they were alive. And it always just kind of, it touches me, and it makes me feel a kind of way. And, But each time these people tell me, they're grateful for what I do, the fact that I take the time to respond. Sometimes it's, I gave their dad, their grandfather, their cousin, their relative some laughter in the final stretch of their lives. Now, why the fuck anybody would want to listen to me in the last couple of weeks of their life is beyond my fucking understanding. And in Michael's situation, his grandmother is 96, lives in a nursing home, and she apparently likes to listen to my show, which I feel bad because all I do is throw out curse words, and I don't want a 96-year-old gentle lady to be curtailed by what I say. But it's hard for me to accept, honest to God, that anything that I convey can give some sort of feeling associated with goodness. I mean, look, I curse, I swear, I say this, I say that. And so when people come to me and they tell me these things, and they're not doing it to kiss my ass, they're doing it because they're genuinely feeling a kind of way about something. But, I also always let them know that the guy you're hearing would not curse in front of your grandmother, would not curse in front of your parents. I wasn't raised to be a fucking animal. So while I'm a bit of a tick in a sense, I am the guy, but in person, I'm a little softer, a little quieter. I'm not some, fucking maniac banging a fucking dildo on the end of a bar screaming, I'm going to kill the next motherfucker that walks in here. That's just not who I am. I still don't tolerate nonsense or bullshit from anybody, but I'm a little different in person, and I think people that know me and have met me on the streets or whatever realize I'm not a fucking animal. Look, I'm a baby kisser and a dog petter. Like a friend of mine says, he always says to me, yeah, I like babies and dogs. That's it. That's kind of where I'm at with my life. But one thing that is important, no matter what, even if shit is strained, you can actually love people and not like them. And I'm not trying to go on a rabbit trail here, but I think it's important because I see a lot of people posting, they're angry with their families and all this crazy shit. But listen, you can love your family, but you cannot like them. I've done that for a long time. But that also doesn't mean that you forget what's honorable and what isn't. You got to make memories, right? You got to make memories, and sometimes things are fucked up. So if anything that I do, has an effect on anybody else, makes their work hour go by faster, makes them laugh a little bit more when times are tough, just gets people to laugh once in a while when the world's so fucked up. Anything that just kind of brings you together and laugh, even if you laugh at the crazy shit I say and say I'm a fucking turd or whatever, then I'm doing something. This isn't, obviously, I've said this a million times. I don't think people believe me. There is no monetary gain in this. If you think for 1 second, I'm making hand over fist, you're out of your fucking mind. There's no money in the mob genre. I've always said that. There is if you're writing books and you're doing this television show, that television show, and this and that and the third. And I will be involved in those things. But to me, it's always not been, this is how I'm going to make this, that, and the third. That's not how my brain operates. If I enjoy doing something, then that's usually satisfaction itself. So one of the things my father always told me, and I think that this advice is good because I see a lot of people, and I'm not trying to get hokey and get away from what we're talking about, like the mob stuff, but the thing is that he always told me you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be a gangster, but if you don't leave an impression to people that you were somehow a spoke in the wheel of their life, then you have done nothing with your life. And it comes back to this message that I got, and you also got to keep in mind, my father, was the guy who offered donuts to the feds when they came to give me the business 20 years ago. So while I get messages that jolt me, at least emotionally on some kind of level, I still find it hard after all these years, how 1 month, how one mouth curse-filled tirade can bring people together and make them all laugh. If that's what I do, then that's great. But that being all said, let's not forget the jerk-offs who assail me nonstop, too, because they're just as important. Nothing makes my morning better than some jerk-off telling me to go get fucked with the cactus. And the thing is, they always spell shit wrong, too. I mean, always, nonstop. It's like these pricks are so frantic trying to insult me that they have massive spelling errors. It's like I need hooked on fucking phonics just to decipher half the shit they say. So while I honor the good messages I get, I also honor the bad ones, because if people aren't screaming and calling me fucking names, then believe me, I am not fucking doing something right. So To Michael's grandmother, I wanted to say hello to you. And I also wanted to say something to Casey McCracken, whose father used to listen to my show. He sadly passed away. The strange thing, Casey, is I think about your father a lot, and I think about the message that you sent. So I hope that during this virus shit, you guys are kind of getting some laughs. But I didn't forget your father, Casey. I didn't want you to think I did. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to get into the Q&A. I know at times we like to have a lot of fun on this show, but it's time to get serious about one thing. I know that the coronavirus pandemic has hurt a lot of my listeners and their businesses. Restaurants have been ordered to close, gyms have been ordered to close, cigar lounges have been ordered to close, and even bars have been ordered to close. These are small businesses that don't always have the cash reserves to continue making their rent or mortgage payments. They can't even pay their vendors. My good friend Mike Kaysen of Kaysen & Kaysen is an experienced bankruptcy lawyer that is there to help you right now. Kaysen & Kaysen represents individuals and small businesses in complex bankruptcy proceedings in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Miami. Give Mike a call at 646-397-6226. And if you mention Mob Talk Radio, he's going to give you a free consultation. Once again, it's Mike Kaysen of Kaysen & Kaysen, 646-397-6226. On a given week, I'm out of town a lot. Whether it's Philadelphia, it's New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, wherever the case may be, I'm always looking for a place where I can sit down and have a great dinner. Ambiance is key, price is obviously key, but the most important thing is the food good? And there's a place I want to tell you about today. It's called Saltwater at Margate. If you are going down to the shore, because I know a lot of people in Philadelphia go to the shore, especially Margate, you're missing out on a great restaurant if you haven't been there. The name is Saltwater Margate. It's at 9401 Ventnor Avenue, Margate City, New Jersey. The phone number there is 609-289-8078. You can also visit them online at saltwatermargate.com. This place is unbelievable. Not only is the food absolutely superb, the price is great too. They're renowned for their pizza and their gnocchi. They have all kinds of different things from mussels to roast pork and Italian fare. So do yourself a favor, do me a favor, go and visit Saltwater Margate. You will not be disappointed. It is a place that I think at some point, if not already, there's going to be lines out the door and around the block. So if you're down on the shore, stop in, go to Saltwater Margate. At least check them out online at saltwatermargate.com. And we're back on Mob Talk Radio, and we are going to get right into your Q&A per the usual. Normally, I want to say on Sundays, Mondays, or Tuesdays, I usually put out the Q&A thing. The way that you can submit questions is simply go on to the fucking radio page on Facebook, Mob Talk Radio, and just shoot me a message or post under the Q&A thing, and that's how we'll get to it. And also, per the usual, I can't get to everybody. I think I had 100 questions sent to me when I put it out, and then I asked for 15 to 20 more and got another 100. So obviously, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, and there's a lot today, so I'm going to probably not get nearly as in-depth as I usually do. But anyway, here we go. I'm going to state this for the record now, because somebody asked me about this. After today, I am no longer going to answer any Gotti-related questions. I'm done with it. I've probably regurgitated the same question 10,000 times. While I appreciate the fact that people like to ask me questions about that, I'm at the point where I've answered enough of that. A lot of the information people ask, you can easily find by Googling it or looking at court case files, or you can look at articles or whatever the case may be. But I'm just done answering them. I am going to answer some today. But if you ask them, I'm not going to answer it, just so that you know now. So there you go. All right. On season 6 of The Sopranos, we see one of the New York families putting hits out on the top 3 guys of the Jersey family and evidently wanting to take out the entire New Jersey family. If this were to happen in real life, would the other 4 families get involved? Probably not, but I think it would depend too. I mean, likely, look, if that's the case, you'd see two of the 4 teaming together. But it would also probably cause the other three to join together. You'd have a lot of jockeying. But I think if we're talking in today's time period, other families they'd stay the fuck out of the nonsense. But I think it depends on the causes of it too. But if it's just about money, I don't think you'd ever see a scenario like that. But this is why we usually see how wars begin internally. A capo will decide enough is enough, and he starts to move on other people, and then you got a war. I mean, that history always repeats itself. So I can't imagine that it couldn't happen, but I just think the reality of today wouldn't. All right. Do you think Paul Castellano intended to whack out Gobby and his crew after the situation with Angelo Ruggiero in the tapes, or was he just going to break them up? I think Paul, he's caught in a decision. Does he kill Gobby? Does he kill Gobby's crew? Does he shelve the crew? Does he split them up? Even if he wanted to, I don't think he could have killed them. I just think that Paul's facing all kinds of indictments. 4 other trials going on at one time, and then this was right prior to the commission trial. I just think that move would have created way too much heat, and so I think probably the reality is he probably would have tried to break them up. And then he might have moved on John Gotti, might have moved on Jeannie, might have moved on Angelo. I don't know. I'm not Paul Castellano. But probably John Gotti Sr. would have taken the brunt of Castellano's rage because he was the captain in charge of that crew. So if we play the scenario that Gotti didn't know what was going on, which I don't believe for 1 second. I think he did know, which is, and people are going to take umbrance with what I just said. And the reason why they are is to say, there he goes. He's saying, Gotti knew, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, it's kind of stupid because even if Gotti knew, it doesn't fucking matter. Paul was taking fucking kickbacks from the Cherry Hill Gambinos. He was taking drug money from other crews. So it's not like Gotti was doing anything different than anybody else wasn't doing. The difference being is Ruggiero gets caught on tapes talking. And that's what sort of inflamed shit and made it worse because it did get Paul indicted. And so I think that if he was, the brunt of his anger would have been at Angelo Ruggiero and probably would have been at John Gotti because he was in charge of the crew at the time. And I also think, had Paul Castellano gone to Neil Della Croce and told him Gotti has to go, I think Neil would have done it. And I always say that, and I say that without hesitation. I think Neil would have done it. Even though Neil and John were tight, I think that Neil could separate, what was family and what was personal. So if Paul Castellano orders that hit, I think it gets done. But then again, I don't think necessarily that maybe Paul would have gone to Neil. He probably would have gone to somebody else out of fear that Neil and John were too tight. But, these are all different scenarios. You could play a million different ways. But I think that Paul, to kill anybody while he's indicted, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. It would have made a statement, but I just don't think it would have been worth the repercussions with everything else going on. All right, what are your thoughts on Tommaso Buscetta and our Godfather documentary film on Netflix? This person also continues, although he was a rat, I actually saw that he was a real man of honor and he felt like the life he had lived and believed in got betrayed by guys such as Toto Rina. Listen, plain and simply, honorable men don't rat. Honorable men don't sit down with the feds. Honorable men don't testify against other people. They take the pinch and they deal with it. We can argue the logistics of this all day long, but Buscetta was not nearly the type of guy that Toto Rina was. Toto Rina was a fucking... he was on a whole nother level than Tommaso Buscetta was. And when we talk about a real man of honor, what real man of honor rats out people? That's not honorable. At least from a street perspective. That's not honorable. And so while I disagree with your opinion, I don't know. Look, it doesn't matter if Tommaso Buscetta feels like he was betrayed. When you join that life, when you join that clique, you join that crew, you know what the fucking game is. It's not like they forgot to tell you the fucking rules. Everything is good while you're making the money, getting the girls, getting the house. But then the minute that you have to take a pinch, it's like, they run and they talk. And so it always makes me laugh when these guys say this bullshit because they don't mention, that sort of shit when they betray other people. They don't mention how they set other people up to get murdered. So, I mean, it's always the padded excuses that they form for themselves to justify the shit that they do. Look, while I can understand how a guy can feel a certain way about a situation, the day that you claim loyalty to the streets, you are vowing never to talk, never to snitch, and you know you're going to take a pinch. They can't do it. You know, they agree to it at the beginning because everything's great. They're making money. They're dating beautiful women. They got all this power. But the second they get caught, they talk. If he had taken millions of dollars and just taken off and fled the country, I would have had more respect for a guy like that. Some people would call it a tragedy. I don't. The guy talked. I just, it's funny to me how, here we go. Like, pieces of shit like Sammy the Bull Gravano does what he does, gets fucking blessed to, don't worry about the fucking 19 murders, comes out, sells drugs to kids, goes back in again, and people fawn over this guy like he's the second coming of Christ. I don't get it. I don't get it. But it is what it is. It is what it is. All right. What mob family was predominantly in the Cincinnati, northern Kentucky area when the mob still had a very big presence there? I'm not sure how much what's going on there now. I mean, I know a couple of things, but I'm not going to get into it. But originally, it was the Provenzano crime family, now known as the Saviano crime family. So I think these days, it's more of a glorified crew than it is a big, powerful family. But they're still there. They're still there. I don't think that that's ever going to change. All right. With the sport shut down, the Mafia has lost an important revenue stream. In your opinion, how much could they be losing? I can imagine it's millions. It's a ton of fucking money. Okay, so there's more to this question, apparently, that I bypassed. Sorry about that. If someone wants to smoke pot, why would they just want to pay the taxes and get seen going to an official pot store if their state allows it? When they could go to a street person that sells pot. I think bookmakers are taking a huge hit, but guys who have diversified into other areas are okay. I mean, everything is shut down, but I'm sure it's been tough. Listen, guys are still collecting money. The guys will still continue to collect money. If you think that a fucking pandemic is going to keep a guy from getting his money, you're out of your mind. Look at ABC stores right now, right? So they're running out of booze. Deliveries aren't coming anytime soon to some of these cities. So you really have a unique situation where you're looking at a semi sort of bootlegging operation that could begin. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if booze stops coming into the country and somebody can fucking find a way to get it in and sell it, there's a racket right there. So it's almost like pre-prohibition days all over again. Look, boost bars, take the liquor, hoard it, sell it, put it out the back door. I mean, you want to make money, that's how you're going to do it. I'm not trying to give anybody an idea. I'm just saying, look, normal shit is running out. But there is money to be made. But is the mob losing money from the rackets to the point with everything shut down? Yeah, of course they are. But I think once everything sort of comes back to normal, things are going to get very, very, very interesting because guys that are I'm not saying anybody in particular, but I think if there are guys that are on the lower end of the spectrum making money, you're going to see a lot of guys running to try to make ends meet and shit as soon as they get out. So you might have some interesting turf stuff going on. I would like to think that's not going to happen, but I think the reality is money, and we could see a scenario like that. I can't tell you what city, but I think that that's an inevitability. I'm shocked the mob hasn't fucking tried to boost a truck with these fucking surgical masks. All right, during the short time the mob owned Cuba, how much was Lansky and Santos Traficante personally pulling in a year? Honestly, I have no idea. I couldn't give you a number, but what I can tell you is that when Castro outed Lansky and the mob from Cuba, Lansky personally allegedly lost $400 million. So one can sort of guess how much money was truly being made. And by the way, I don't believe for a second that Meyer Lansky died poor. $400 million to that guy, I think he was worth a lot more than that. So I don't believe that he was poor by any stretch of the imagination. All right. What are mob guys doing right now during the coronavirus? All right, so what I will say is I can tell you that some people that I do know, they're doing the same shit you're doing. They're going batshit crazy looking out the fucking window. There's nothing to do. They're staying off the streets. I will never understand why people think these guys are not normal guys. We text, we crack jokes with each other. That's what life is. So when all hell breaks loose, you poke fun at the Irish. And what I mean when I say that is that's a jab at a friend of mine who I'm not going to, obviously mention, but and he's probably going to say he doesn't have any problems with the Irish. And we both, him and I, know that that's sort of bullshit, because he, at one point I was with this guy, and he was going on a rant about the Irish, and I haven't let that shit go since. Being half Italian, half Irish myself, I always try to bust his balls about it. But just like I always tell him, I sent him a text. I says, you better pack up your shit and run, because the Irish are going to invade your city. And so I just bust his balls. But it also makes me want to make him a shirt that says "Fuck you, you're Irish," because he's going to. I know what he's doing right now. If he's listening to this, he's saying, "I never fucking said that." You did. You fucking did. You busted you talk shit about the Irish. So I got to give it back to him a little bit. It cracks him up. So that's a common bond. And it is what it is. All right. Do you think Lansky lost almost everything when Castro took over? No. I've never believed that Meyer Lansky put all his eggs in one basket. I think he was a lot smarter than that. Did he take a beating in Cuba? Absolutely. But I think he wasn't bankrupt. I still think he had... Listen, he lost Cuba. He lost the Hotel Nacional there, but he still had rackets in the United States that he was getting a ton of money on. And he was taking narcotics kickbacks. So any idea that he somehow lost all his money because Fidel Castro wanted to be a piece of shit, to me, is just a little lopsided. All right, how does someone switch from one family to another? I heard Frank Curliolino was with 4 families before settling in with the Bonanos. Lino did move around a lot, absolutely. Look, it just comes down to one guy gets in one way, ends up somewhere else. And the only time it really becomes a headache is when a guy's a huge earner. If a guy's a huge earner, guys aren't going to want to give him up. And usually when that happens, there's a lot of money that transfers back and forth to each side, sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to take Joey Pipes out of your crew. We're going to put him with us, but here's $75,000, $25,000, whatever the case may be, because he's leaving. It's just like anything else. If you want to go over here, you want to go over there, why not? Why wouldn't you allow it? Sammy the Bull Gravano didn't start with the Gambinos. So, guys transfer around, do a lot of different things. Just, but it only really becomes a problem when a guy's a fucking hell of an earner. All right. So there are a couple of questions here that are going to come. I'm not sure what order they're in. But there's a couple of questions coming now that are asking a lot of sensitive type of shit. And normally I don't answer things like this, but I'm going to in my own kind of way. All right, so you have said you know certain people, and I know you never mention names, which is, I think, an honorable thing in every sense. And I know it always leads people to speculate that you don't know anybody, but I think a lot of people secretly know better, but they just love to hate. So my question is, are you closer to one guy, one group, or a bunch of different people? I think, the word close is like a vast statement. I mean, do I like certain guys better than others? Absolutely, sure. Look, it's a mutual respect thing, and I think you'd be amazed at just the respect that comes from both sides. I've talked to certain guys during this virus. We joke around, how you doing, how's your family, and that's what it's always about. We're not talking about anything criminal, anything stupid. We're not gossiping. How's your family? You need anything? And that's what I'm talking about. So are they my friends? Absolutely. Would I do anything for them? Absolutely, without hesitation. I even recently, and this might get me in a little shit, but it is what it is. I'm not going to mention names. So I recently heard a story that sort of happened a couple of months back. Somebody that I do know, that I consider a friend, took it upon themselves, without my knowledge, to address a situation that involved me. It was nothing illegal, nothing bad. It was just something that was going on that upset me, and just pissed me off, and it was a lot of things that was just really, at the end of the day, business sort of stuff. And I didn't even know that this guy had gone and said something to somebody else. And I don't want to get into the crux of what that conversation was, but apparently a friend of mine went to somebody else and just said, what the fuck? And that's honorable to me. This guy didn't call me and say, oh, by the way, I looked into this or that, and I talked to this guy, and, I made sure he knew this or that. And it just, so the fact that somebody does not call me and say, oh, by the way, I did you a favor, that's class. That's total fucking class. He did it. He didn't even tell me. I found out through a third party. And it really was no big thing. It really wasn't at the end of the day. But that's what I'm talking about. That's class. That's how gentlemen handle themselves. You know, they don't need to do something for you and then fucking call you and say, oh, by the way, I looked into this, or I said this, or I said that. They don't need to tell me that they're looking out for my interests, or that because they're my friend, they're defending me. They don't have to do that. That's what friends do. And that's why I'm loyal to every single one of them, because that's what they do. Look, people can put a label on this guy's head, that guy's head, call him this, call him that, but you have no idea the amount of respect I have for them. Look, where I come from, everything is about respect. You honor your word. And never once has any of them, even the ones that don't fucking like me, ever acted anything other than like gentlemen with me. You get loyalty by treating people like they fucking matter. And I'm not treated like a jerk off with the mouth. I'm treated like family. And I cannot say enough about people like that. That is a fucking dying character trait. So, you know. All right. What do you think drew Neil Delacroce to John Gotti? They seem like two totally different people. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't know either one of them, but I agree. They were nothing alike. One was quiet and dangerous. The other valued old rules. And the other probably started that way, but then ultimately sort of saw it his way. Gotti, when he was younger, he was ambitious. He was tough. He followed the rules. He was about Cosa Nostra. And I don't think anybody can tell you that he wasn't. That's how he led his fucking life. But I think after he gets promoted to captain, things kind of get a little hazy. Problems come in. And listen, there's nothing wrong with being outspoken. Nothing wrong with having an opinion. But there's a pecking order to everything. And I think Neil probably saw a bit of himself in John Gotti when John Gotti was younger. And listen, I don't think, despite anything negative I could ever say, Gotti wasn't ever going to tell on nobody. Gotti was hardcore gangster till the day he died. Did he make mistakes? Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's just being honest, right? But I think Neil saw a bit of himself in Gotti, even though they were a little bit different. One thing you can't take away from John Gotti is he was a tough guy. He really was. You can't take that away from him. You can nitpick, getting caught on wiretaps and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, does that sequence, mar the entire characteristic that was him? No, absolutely not. All right. I know you specifically do not like informants. Oh, here we go. See, this one's really, thanks a lot. Whoever, I'm not going to say your name because I know who you are, but whoever asked me this is fucking baiting me. I'm telling you, this question is baiting me. I don't know why they do this to me, but the fucking phone calls I'm going to get from this fucking one. All right. Oh, Jesus. All right, I know you specifically do not like informants, but I notice you get especially brutal with informants in the past that have come out of South Philly or Philadelphia. So, Bent Finger Lou Monticello, your thoughts. Laugh out loud. All right, a fucking Amway selling piece of shit jerk off. You know how he got the nickname Bent Finger, right? Or Bent Finger, right? He's sticking it up his own fucking ass. That's how that guy gets his fucking little nickname. What a cute little nickname, Bent Finger. Ooh, I'm supposed to be scared of that shit. What are you, a fucking proctologist? You mesophanook. Ugh. So if there was ever an informant that was worse than the rest, it's this piece of shit. The jury didn't believe a word he said. A juror, literally after that trial, called him a fucking slime ball. That should tell you something about the validity of blowjob Bent Finger Lou, or whatever the fuck he wants to call himself. This is a guy who had a personal beef with two other guys and tried to frame them up and bury them because he lacks any fortitude as a fucking man. It always cracks me up how these wannabe fucks, because they're borderline retards, and all they do is point the finger at everybody else. This is just another fucking symptom of the government hiring some cross-dressing bitch to tell big fish stories, and it goes nowhere. Fuck Bent Finger and anybody who looks like Bent Finger. He and Previty He and Previty should dress up like Jabba the Hutt and Princess Leia and reenact the fucking Star Wars scene from Mos Eisley Cantina. Bent finger sticking it right up Jabba Previty's ass. That fuck. Or how about one big gangbang, a six-way? You got Previty, VC, Bentfinger, Ratweiser, and Anastasia. Imagine the rat plague coming out of that fucking room. Fucking, that guy is a disgrace. An absolute fucking disgrace and a jerk-off. Fuck him. Fuck him and everybody that looks like him. He looks like a fucking tree from the fucking Wizard of Oz. That prick. All right. Here we go with another Gene Borello. Who is Gene? All right. So what do you think of Gene Borello now that he's gone public with his past and being mentored by the guy that you can't name publicly? Borello wasn't made, never made, and he never had a huge crew. The fact that he's being mentored by someone we won't name should tell you really who Gene Borello is at his core. Look, Borello was a fucking... He killed people, right? He was a maniac. There's no way around that. But ask yourself why someone who allegedly has a large crew and he was so dedicated into being the life turns his back and squeals. He couldn't do time. That's the bottom line. And that's not a man. Bottom line. All right. What family did Joe the Animal Barbossa belong to? And who killed him and were they ever caught? Joe Barbossa was a rat snitch, Portuguese piece of shit fuck. And he was a hitman for the Patriarcha crime family. Obviously, J.R. Russo was blamed, and I believe he was convicted for that murder, but that's not who committed the murder. And I can tell you that with 100% certainty. I know who was involved, but I'm just going to leave it right there. Let's just say that the two who carried out that hit on Barbossa are no longer alive. But I'm just not going to go there. But the feds got that one wrong. I'll just tell you that. All right. How did you know about the Phil Narducci? Oh, here we go again. You guys, how did you know about the Phil Narducci case before anybody with the tapes? And how did you know about the kid being a terrorist before anybody, too? Keep up the great work. I'm still wondering how the fuck you got that information. The main story behind that is going to be in a book, which I'm just sort of finishing up writing. But what I can say is this. How it began for me was I got a call the day that Phil got arrested. Maybe it wasn't a call. Maybe it was a message. I think it was a text message from somebody who I don't know if they want me to mention their name. But he knows who he is. So my phone goes off, and it's a text that says, "Your friend Phil got pinched." So like many others, I'm like, what the fuck? So I just sat back waiting for more information. And a few days later, I got an email that had copies of the terrorist rat pimp piece of shit, nothing rat fuck, basically trying to shake somebody down. So when I got the tapes, I did reach out to Phil. And I said, hey, listen, I got these tapes. I don't know if it can help. So basically, I forwarded that to his legal team. I mean, that's what you do, right? And so Phil and I talked, and he sort of told me what happened when he got pinched and just kind of laid out, the insanity of everything that was going on. But as far as the informant's past, how I found out about that, who gave me information or where I acquired that, I'm never going to tell anybody. Even in my book, I don't tell anybody. The information was given to me. I ran with it. I put it out as everywhere. I sent it to the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I thought that it was better to get out ahead of the storm to try to help somebody. And apparently what I did, according to the federal government, was against the law. I didn't know that, but I didn't give a fuck either. And that's sort of how it went down. People have made allegations that I got the shit from Phil, and I didn't. I didn't get it from him. That's just the government knowing they don't have a fucking case, trying to fucking impugn Phil and myself by saying, oh, there's no way that he got this out of thin air. I get a lot of shit out of thin air. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised the amount of shit that comes across my desk. All right. Was it the fact that Carmine Galante made so much money with the drug connection or his reputation as a killer to keep anybody outside of his own family from touching him? Dude whacks 8 guys from the fucking Gambinos openly, has a beef with very powerful men. How does he get away with this? Why did the Gambinos not respond? And if his secondary if he had men around him who were strong, how does he even get whacked? Look, regardless, Galante was going to get killed. The other families were not going to stand for his bullshit for too long, but I think initially just the fact that he was willing to just kill 8 Gambinos and think nothing of it, it sort of caught a lot of people off guard. And you can't just go, okay, he killed 8, let's retaliate now. They had to plan, they had to think ahead. Sometimes you got to react slowly to things. But I do think he had a lot of power at the time, and I think it gave a lot of guys pause of, holy shit, what the fuck are we going to do? But either way, at the end of the day, he paid for it. He was going to pay for it, but it just was going to take some time. All right, here's another one that's going to... I swear, I'm starting to wonder how many of these questions are coming out of South Philly because... Oh, God. All right, your thoughts on Joe Gobby. I don't know Joe, so... I don't know him, but everything that I have ever heard is that he's a good man. He's an honorable man. He's a stand-up man. Like I said, I don't know him, but I can tell you one thing. People love that guy. And he reminds me of Carlo Gambino in a lot of ways. It's just the way he carries himself. He's an unassuming guy. He's an old-school guy. He's retired, and people should obviously leave him the fuck alone already. Let the guy ride it out the rest of his life, enjoying life. So stop peeking over the fucking fence and taking photos of the guy reading this fucking newspaper, you creep show fucks, and you know the two I'm talking about. What the fuck ever happened to these reporters being respectful? You'll get more with a kind word than a barrel of bullshit. Trust me. So, Joe, if you need a high-powered water cannon to put in your backyard to keep these pricks the fuck away from you, let me know. I'll send one down. We're going to have a field day. We wear pirate hats and shoot them into the fucking streets. All right, not really a question. Maybe you could do a show on mob cities we never hear anything about, such as New Orleans. Actually, I have covered New Orleans a little bit. You just got to look through the long piles of shows that I have done, and you just can find that there. All right, if you had to pick the strongest underboss of the 90s, who would it be and why? Probably Benny Eggs Mangano. Just being honest with you, he was strong, he was deadly, he carried a lot of weight. Carried a lot of respect. That's the guy I would go with. And anybody that's got a nickname like Benny Eggs is number one on my fucking list. All right. I don't buy that Bugsy Siegel was stealing from the Mafia and his lifelong friends because he knew he couldn't get away with that without it being suspicious at least. That's the thing. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So you can choose to not believe that. But Benny Siegel didn't get killed for no fucking reason. Mob guys, if you think mob guys are completely honest 24/7 with everybody, you're out of your fucking mind. Look, if there's money on the table, they're going to take it. And not all, but some. Siegel's problems were bigger than just theft. The fact that Lansky was asked to prove it one way or the other is very telling. Lansky told his friends the truth. And as much as he didn't want Benny Siegel to get killed, he also knew that he had to be honest because at the end of the day, the thing that he was involved with was more important than a personal friendship. I think it always bothered Meyer Lansky. I know that he had often said that if he had been in charge, that murder never would have happened, but he wasn't. And in those days, look, Lansky could have wielded a lot of power to say to them, look, let's not do this. But he went along with what the core of the group wanted. What was best for organized crime was him dying. And that's just the reality with it. And that just shows that his loyalty was about making money and keeping those close ties with the mob, other than just creating a bigger problem by defending Bugsy Siegel. All right. In your opinion, who is the very last true mob boss who controlled drug rackets, had unions, and made large amounts of money doing it? Probably Vito Genovese, Carlo Gambino, Joe Bonanno, probably of the bunch, probably Vito Genovese. Vito especially. Carlo is a little bit softer, a little quieter. Joe Bonanno, we know what he did, but I think probably Vito Genovese. All right. How is the quarantine in New York City affecting the day-to-day business of the 5 families? Do you think they're taking a hit like legitimate businesses, or do they have ways around it? Everybody's taking a hit. Guys are probably trying to make money wherever they can right now. I don't think it's going to open up till the virus ends. All right. Do you think Tony Spilotro or Blasi killed Giancana? I think it's more likely that Butch did it. because he was closer to Giancana, even though there are rumors that Tony Spilotro snuck in and out of Giancana's house and did it. Look, we're never going to know. Some say it was Blasi, some say it's Spilotro. Both were capable of it. Both were known killers. But one of them did it for sure. But I tend to believe, honestly, of the two, it was likely Blasi. I know that in the past I've said, I believed it was Spilotro. But I've come across some stuff recently that sort of suggests that it happened a different way, which makes a little bit more sense to me, makes it a little more palatable. So I'm going to go with Blasi. I think he's the one that ultimately did it at the end of the day. All right. You said recently on a podcast you will no longer answer Gotti questions, and yet people still continue to ask you the same stupid Gotti questions. Does that get on your nerves? It does, and after today, like I said, I'm bypassing all of that. All right. When will Joey Merlino officially be out of a halfway house if he's not already? Look, Joey's down in Florida, Miami, doing what he's got to do. I think he's off papers in July, but with this pandemic, maybe Joey gets off a little bit earlier. Who knows? I think, look, if you've only got 2 or 3 months left on paperwork, just with the pandemic, just get him the fuck out. Let him go home. That's what should happen. I would definitely support that. All right. I know John Stanfa was Angelo Bruno's driver the night he was shot, but who was the gunman? Thank you. A lot of people have claimed that it was John Stanfa himself who did it. Ralph Natale said that Anthony Caponegro did it. I don't know. I sort of have my suspicions. I think we can say that no matter what, Stanfa was definitely involved. He either pulled the trigger or he looked the other way. I don't think it matters who did it, really, technically. He was involved either way. When a guy sitting in a passenger seat gets his fucking head exploded with a shotgun and you don't get touched, you're in on it. I'm sorry. You'd at least take out the driver. I mean, I would. That way you got no eyeballs on it, but that's just it. All right. Is there still a Riccobene faction in the Philly mob, or did the crew connect with another family? Nope. Pretty much done and defunct. Why don't the FBI use the tax laws to lock up mobsters like what they did with Al Capone and the IRS? I don't know why they don't. You would think that you follow the money. That's the easiest way to get guys. I don't know why they didn't. And I think probably because the logistic of it is you're not going to put a guy in prison for 30 years for tax evasion. You're going to get a 5-year bid, a 10-year bid, maybe 15 if you're really lucky or really special. But the feds want long-term sentences. They want to put a guy away not just for 5 years, forever. They want fire and brimstone trials. And the reason why they want, come on, how fucking exciting would a fucking IRS tax fucking trial be if it was Joey Merlino, for example, right? That'd be boring. Who the fuck wants to cover that? Oh, Joey didn't pay taxes. Jerk me off. They want fire and brimstone trials. It gets them in the press. It gets them up the fucking political ladder. And that's what the feds want. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they want fucking headlines. So that may be a part of it. It's easier, I think, to catch somebody tax-wise than it would be to prove a fucking murder. But that's just they're narcissistic fucks. That's all. It's got to be newsworthy, noteworthy. So I don't know. All right. Jeff, your opinion. Can we get a list of the top 10 greediest mafia bosses of all time? Joe Profaci, Vito Genovese, Joe Colombo, Carmine Galante, Joe Masseria, Salvatore Maranzano, Joe Bonanno, Nicky Scarfo, Sam Giancana, and Al Capone. There you go. I'll say it again. The 10 greediest, in my opinion: Joe Profaci, Vito Genovese, Joe Colombo, Carmine Galante, Joe Masseria, Salvatore Maranzano, Joe Bonanno, Nicky Scarfo, Sam Momo Giancana, and Al Capone. All right. I really enjoy your radio show. I'd like to know does the mob still get shares from the casinos in the U.S. or in Canada? Thank you and stay safe. I don't know, to be honest with you, but I can't imagine that, say, places like the Poconos probably are still giving a kickback to some fashion or form. I can't give you certifiable information on that, but I don't think that the mob is totally out of casinos. There's fringe guys. There's guys there. It's not what it was, say, the 50s, the 60s. Absolutely not. But I think if we, and I don't think all the corporations that own these casinos are the heads of those casinos either. And in fact, I once heard the Maloofs. If you know who the Maloofs are, we're kicking back to the mob. I'm not going to say to which crime family I heard that about, but I've always heard the Maloofs definitely have always kicked back to the mob in some way, form, or fashion. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with the Q&A. And welcome back to Mob Talk Radio. We are continuing with your questions. Okay. Just curious on your reasons for not liking Joe Pistone, mainly because, okay. So this person wants to know why I don't like Joe Pistone. Let me tell you a couple of reasons. First of all, he broke the law and he was an FBI agent. Here's my thing. If you're an FBI agent, your job is to arrest the so-called quote-unquote bad guys. But the way you conduct yourself as an agent, you got to be professional. People die because of what Joe Pistone did. They knew Sonny Black was in deep shit. They knew he was going to get killed. And the FBI has a responsibility to get those guys off the street and protect them. And they didn't. You know, if they got a responsibility to protect somebody they know is going to get killed and they don't do shit, then that makes them culpable. That makes them a conspirator. People will argue with me that that's not the case, but it is. The other issue is that Joe Pistone bragged. He bragged about breaking his code of ethics, which he agreed to when he joined the fucking FBI. He bragged about keeping money. Those were all against the rules for an FBI agent. That's what my issue is. Listen, if you're going to be a flag-waving FBI agent, then do your fucking job honorably. Don't cheat the system. Don't brag. Don't admit to breaking the laws. Ha, ha, ha. It's all fucking funny. But I'm not going to think very highly of an agent like that. There are agents that, listen, I'm not the type of person that's going to tell you every fucking FBI agent that ever has lived has been a scumbag, lying sack of shit. But the majority of them have been. They twist and bend the law where they can. But there are some that have just been honorable. And we've seen instances of that. But Joe Pistone's a fucking pissant. Nothing more, nothing less. And he believes his own bullshit and hype. That's what I don't like about him. There you go. All right, what do you think about the movie State of Grace with Sean Penn? This person continues to say, I personally think it's in my top 5 gangster movies. Honest to God, I've never seen it, and that's probably something I'm going to do while I'm under quarantine with Ron Previty. Fat fuck. No, I will definitely check out State of Grace and let you know what I think about it. Has the American Mafia ever had any part in the Australian Mafia or legit business matters? Probably, but I think Australia, especially with the Madaffries, has pretty much run on its own. Will there be Mob Talk Radio playing cards with mob figures on them that you're going to try to sell? You know, I thought about that a long time ago. That was something that I wanted to do, and my concept was really cool, actually. It was, I don't care. Somebody can take my concept and run with it. I don't give a fuck. But if you have playing cards with you know, Chicago, L.A., fucking the Jewish Mafia, Philadelphia, New York, Rhode Island, Boston, New Orleans, and then, you know, like Capone would be the ace of spades or whatever, and then there's little facts on the bottom. I would love to do something like that. But the problem is that what it costs to produce those versus selling them to a market that you don't know what is makes it kind of hard. I know that there are some out there, and I think what I was going to do was a little differently, but it's just when you think in terms of what it costs to produce them versus sale, you're putting more into it to try to develop that and then to sell it and keep it low cost so people can collect them. It's one of them things where it's too much to try to do to make it worthwhile doing in any sort of sense. All right, your favorite gangster present day that's not a boss. Mine are Eddie Lino, Frank Locasio, and Frankie DeChico. I don't know if I really have any favorites, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I'm just loyal to my friends. That's pretty much it. I'm really not going to talk about present day guys. Present day gangster. Well, Frankie DeChico is dead. Frank Locasio is in prison. Present day. It's present day. I take present day as today, and if that's the case, I'm not even going to get into that. All time though, I think probably Vinny the Chin Gigante for me. That's just me. All right, what's the most lucrative racket today that is the mob's money source? Loan sharking and drugs. Those are going to be the two big ones. Loan sharking, drugs are the two most profitable, other than construction, rackets that are still being used today. They're always going to be used. All right. I was rewatching Goodfellas. Do you agree that there's no way Henry Hill got front row seats at the Copa? Many don't know, but Frank Costello actually had a huge interest in the Copacabana. He owned a part of it. But I don't think it's a stretch to say that Henry Hill got good seats. I mean, all gangsters did in those days. So I don't think that it was... if Henry Hill got a fucking great seat, I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that it was Henry Hill. It had to do with the fact that they knew Jimmy Burke and they knew Paulie Vario. That's what was going to get Henry Hill that power, because of the connections that Henry Hill had. But I don't think it was because Henry Hill walked in, to be honest with you. All right, Gangster Squad is one of my favorites. I know it's not totally all the way accurate, but did you like it? It's semi-accurate, and it's also one of my favorites too. It's a good film. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it. Did Carlo Gambino only speak Sicilian? No, he spoke English, different dialects of Italian like Abruzzi, and Spanish as well. So he was multilingual, but just wasn't just, he didn't just come over here and only speak Sicilian the rest of his life. All right, what's the latest news out of Canada? This epidemic virus seems to have put the warring to rest. For now, it has. It's very quiet there. I think this virus bullshit is really the one thing that's pushing media in all circles. Will it keep it quiet for now? Sure, but we'll see what happens, once this all ends. All right, hockey question. If the NHL season picks up again, how do you see the Flyers doing this year? I don't think the NHL will play again this year. I think that baseball, not football, baseball, hockey, DNBA, I think they're all done for the year. I think that's probably the most responsible thing they can do. And I don't think we can argue how the Flyers are going to do or we're going to do, because I think that I know that the NHL has come out and said that they were thinking of doing a system if they come back where the top three teams in each division get in. Well, that's kind of fucked up. And how can you do that? Because there are teams that were on the fringe prior to the stoppage. Toronto being probably a team that we could talk about that was in that position, that were gaining some steam. I think it's unfair. If you take the top three and you tell everybody else that's below the top three, yeah, you're fucked. I don't think that's right, and I don't think that's fair, because you don't know what the last 18 games were going to bring. The Flyers could have gone on a run and won the fucking division for all we know. But I think if I take it right where the Flyers stopped, it's a shame for the Flyers. Look, I hate the fucking Flyers. I'm a Penguins fan. So I don't like the Flyers. I never fucking have. Although back in the early 90s, the fucking Legion of Doom line, Leclerc, Lindros, Renberg, they had Recchi. They had a great fucking team. Why? How the fuck they did not win a Stanley Cup with that lineup is beyond my fucking understanding. But it is what it is. But I think the Flyers were heading in a direction where they were really going to get the Capitals some fucking heat. And that would have been the team to beat coming out of the Metro Division. So, it sucks. It sucks for the Flyers. It sucks for the Flyers fans, because I think that they were really going into the last 18 games. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Flyers were going to do. And unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to fucking know. All right, did the mob guy do mob guys or have mob guys own pizzerias? Of course they have. Look at the pizza connection. There you go. All right, have the Mafia and the KKK ever crossed paths? I'm sure they did. But I don't think that they were fucking, playing cards together. All right. Oh, boy. Here we go. I know you don't mention names, but just this once, let's say you were going to form your own crime family. Name 6 guys you want immediately who are current or semi-current. No dead guys, please. While I would certainly love to answer this question, I'm afraid my answers might tend to incriminate myself. And I don't think that my answers would be very pleasing to people. So I'm going to do it this way. And so you people that are mob genre people are going to have to try to figure this out. I'll give you a couple clues. Nothing really substantially out there, but it's going to be interesting to see what you guys come back with. So after I sort of describe 4 people, I'm going to tell you that they are coming from Philadelphia. So I'll give you that first clue. And all 4 of these guys are good guys, good men, respectable guys. So through my clues, you can try to figure them out, and I want you to message me who you think they are. Now, I'm never going to verify to you. I'm never going to tell you you're right. But I want to see how smart the people that listen to my show are. And anybody in Philadelphia is not allowed to join in on this because you're going to know immediately. Some of you will. So these 4 or 5 or whatever the case may be they're smart guys, the tough guys, and their personalities are not what you suspect. All right, so here we go. Guy number 1, he smiles nonstop like George Hamilton. When I see this guy or I've ever talked to this guy, he reminds me of George Hamilton. I don't know why. So it's going to be interesting to see who you come at me with when I say George Hamilton smiles nonstop. One guy is a very quiet guy, but if you piss him off, he might just bite your fucking nose off. There's a clue to the second guy. There's another one who always talks sort of like in parables. He doles out advice nonstop, but he does not mince his fucking words for 1 fucking second. And he's not somebody you want to fuck with. The last one of that group would be shrewd, funny, and very sports-oriented. So there are your 4 clues. 1 smiles nonstop and looks like George Hamilton. 1 is quiet until you really piss him off, and he might just bite your fucking nose off. 1 talks in parables. He doles out advice, and he doesn't mince his fucking words ever. And the final one is shrewd, funny, and very sports-oriented. So message me who you think they are. This is going to be interesting. And if anybody is close, I'm not going to verify it, but maybe I'll give you a thumbs up if you get 1 right. All right, that'll be fair. The other 2, I'm not going to mention either. But 1 has a nickname like a purple dinosaur. That's kind of easy to figure out. And the other one is a Providence, Rhode Island guy, low-key, smart as a whip. And I'm just going to leave that right there. Those 6 alone are the top of the top. You will not find any other 6 guys as loyal as those 6, straight up. And if I tell you what, if anybody can name me all of them guys I'm talking about, if you come up with all 6, I'll send you a free Mob Talk artwork. I'll send you a Joey Merlino or something. So if you can get all 6, I'll send you something. And you'll know because I'll ask for your address, and you'll know you got it right. All right, here we go. I know a guy who told me when he was a kid back in the early 80s, his parents took him out for dinner at a well-known restaurant in Baltimore's Little Italy. He told me that he had seen John Gotti Sr. eating with a bunch of people. Does that sound reasonable to you, considering the Gambinos had a crew down there until 1990 or so? Or do you think this guy's just bean shooting? The timing would be accurate. The reference would be accurate. Everything you've said is accurate. I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. I don't see why he wouldn't be there. So there's really nothing I could say to you that would say to me that isn't the case. He's probably not bean shooting. He's probably telling you the truth. You know, you never know. All right. Oh, Lord. All right. Can you talk about any Mafia guys you've met over the years? Just curious on your first impression upon meeting them. Not current ones, of course, but people in the past like Castellano, Gotti, and Gambino. I don't know any of those guys. Never met any of those guys. Anybody I've ever met's always been a gentleman. And I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment in this case. But I will say, of those names you mentioned, I don't know any of those guys. Never met any of those guys. All right. I heard you say that the Godfather is highly romanticized. What does that actually mean? To me, it's one of the greatest movies, but it's bleak and everybody loses in the end. For me, it just means it's they made something that is street crime regal. The often comparison that I try to give is like the Kennedy family, okay? Everybody calls Kennedy America's royalty, right? They made street criminals look like they were fucking royalty, and that's not the case. Joe Bonanno can, turn over in his grave 16 fucking times by trying to portray it like that, but the reality is that organized crime families are not royalty, they're fucking gangsters. And I think that they tried to make it too, what's that movie with fucking Robert Redford? The Great Gatsby. They try to make it too Great Gatsby-like, and it's just not realistic to me. All right, I have a question. So let's say somebody that's an associate in the mafia is waiting to get made, and he just keeps waiting and waiting and waiting. Do they end up just walking away, or do they just never know, or do they just realize they're not going to get made and just say fuck it? It's been my experience that guys are not focused on getting made. They're focused on getting money. Money brings power. Power brings rank. Power brings, money equals promotion. Money equals getting made. So I think guys are more focused on fucking getting that money. Like a guy like Joe Watts could have never been fucking made, but he made hand over fucking fist. So money's the root of everything. Oh, I don't know if I want to fucking answer this one. I really don't, because fuck. Okay, so I'm going to do... no, I'm just not going to go there. Listen, so here's the thing, and this question involves somebody that I know, but I don't know, somebody I've been around a couple of times. I just, at this point, am not going to fucking answer it, only because it's going to serve me no purpose. It's a very baited question, and I do think that this is coming out of... this person has never asked me a question ever on my show before, and I think it's a baited question coming from a certain demographic that loves certain people, and I'm just not going to get baited into the question. And I'm just going to say this. You asked me the question, asking me if this person would stand up, asking me thoughts of this person's short time in the life. I'm just not going to go there, because the guy's fucking irrelevant. He's been irrelevant for 20 fucking years now. I'm not gonna go there. It's not worth the fucking headaches. But I will be talking about it in my book, so we can go there with that. All right. Are there any Mafia video games you would recommend? Yeah, The Godfather. It's an older game. Fantastic. Good gameplay. I loved every minute of it. Especially when you drive through old New York in the 20s and 30s, fucking Tommy gunning motherfuckers and throwing Molotov cocktails through windows. Pretty fun stuff. All right, how is it for the families in prison? Do they hold their own, or are they clicked up with everybody? They keep to themselves. They always have. They always will. They're the shot callers in certain prisons. Usually in federal lockups they are, not necessarily in state, but there you go. All right, would you rather have Tommy Patera or Jimmy Burke on your side? Jimmy Burke, hands down, any day of the fucking week. If you had to interview someone from the Godfathers of the five families without any repercussions, who would it be? Anybody from the time period of 1970 through now. Tony Salerno or Vinny Gigante would be the first two on my list. All right, my friend Beto. I read there's only been 2 Chicago outfit guys that have ever flipped. How accurate is that? On the record, yes, but there's always guys that you never find out about that were given the feds information. So while that is accurate, at least factually, it probably isn't at the end of the day. All right, how would a mob-related podcast or newsletter gone over in the 1960s? Well, put it this way, I'd be dead. I couldn't have done this in 1960. They'd have killed me. Even though I defend guys and whatever, just different time period. All right, did the Mafia finish off Martin Luther King Jr.? Nope, the CIA took care of that one. How many guys was Anthony Mira suspected of killing? Dozens. Should a person be more worried about crossing Joey Merlino or the coronavirus? Joey's a good guy. Why does everybody think Joey's some kind of fucking animal? He's a good guy. But I will say this. If I was given the task of saying, what would you be more worried about, catching this coronavirus or Joey Merlino? Well, one's going to kill you quick and the other's going to kill you slow. So you take your fucking pick. And I always say that is it's a guaranteed problem. Corona might not kill you. It might not hurt you. But, and I'm not saying Joey's a killer. I'm just saying you fuck with people, you get what's coming to you. But really, in all seriousness, no, Joey's a gentleman. He's always been a fucking gentleman. He doesn't bother nobody. He never has. He never will. He minds his own fucking business. And a lot of the things that people say about him are just absolutely fucking atrocious. They're not fucking true. He's never, ever in his life, in any conversation I have had with him, been mean to me, been rude. He's a funny guy. He really is a funny fucking guy. You can talk sports with him. You can talk all kinds of shit. But he has a way of sneaking up on a motherfucker on a balcony that can terrify you. I don't even know if I've ever told this story. So when I was at his trial, there was like a fucking... I think Joey was on the 9th floor or whatever, and I think on the 5th or the 4th or the 6th. I can't remember what the fucking floor is. I always kept getting lost in that fucking place. But... you would go out there to smoke. So, of course, whoever's there that smokes is going to go out there. I never had a fucking lighter. They always confiscated the fucking thing. Somehow Joey was able to sneak a fucking lighter in the place, or you'd have to bring in matches. And I would go out there either right before his trial would begin or, right after, the lunch break or whatever the case. But Joey walks. He is the slowest, not the slowest, he's the most quiet walker I've ever seen in my life. Most guys... they're wearing dress shoes, they're in court, whatever, clickety-clack off the fucking pavement. You would think you'd hear the motherfucker coming. Nope. So I'm standing fucking with my face overlooking the city. There's maybe one or two guys over here smoking and just doing their own thing or whatever. I'm standing there, and I'm, thinking about the trial and some other shit that's going on in my life. And Joey's got a real deep voice to begin with, right? So I'm standing there, and he creeps up behind me. And I know he didn't do it intentionally. That's how Joey walks. And you would think I would smell the cigarette or I'd hear him lighting the fucking cigarette. Nothing. I don't hear nothing. So I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, right behind me is this fucking voice like Dracula. He scared the shit out of me. He goes, what the fuck do you think? What do you think's going on? What are my odds today? What do you think? What's your opinion? It just, the way he did it, the way he said it, terrified. It jolted me. I jumped, and he looked at me like I was on fucking crack. He came out of nowhere, and I'm like, what the fuck? So he's a good guy. He's a funny guy. He's sociable. Don't believe a lot of the things you hear about the guy, but yeah, he startled me. The unfortunate thing is this prick does this shit behind my back while I'm standing next to a fucking balcony, and I'm like, thank God I didn't jump over the balcony. Fucking Joey. All right. Will the Gemini twins ever be released? No. Will Tommy Patera? No, and no. Do you think the NHL hockey season is over? Go Flyers. Yeah, the NHL season, I think, is over. Who gave the go-ahead for Tony Spilotro's murder? I think we all know who did that. Have you ever met John Gotti Sr.? Nope, never met him. Your thoughts on Larry Mazza? Rat, snitch, gutless fuck. There you go for that. A couple more. Had Gotti not been caught on wiretaps, do you think the government would have successfully convicted him and sentenced him to life? Eventually, probably, likely. But you never know. Somebody told me last night, oh, you gotta cut the slack on Gotti because fucking, the government spent $120 million going after him. They had fucking 6 fucking organized crime squads. It's hard to avoid surveillance, blah, blah, blah. All that being said, I think ultimately they would have gotten him, but it wouldn't have been the way that it happened, that's for sure. All right, to your knowledge, who are some of the best cooks in the mob? I'll give you one. Angelo Lutz. How about that? Why did Scarfo give Phil Narducci and his brothers a pass after Salvi Testa killed Chicky Narducci? What did either one of them have to do with Salvi Testa? Seriously, what do Phil and Frankie have anything to do with Salvi Testa? It's got nothing to do with them. So why would Scarfo hold something against them that the father did, allegedly anyway? All right. Any chance if the shooters that killed Anastasia were from Chicago? Nope, it was New York guys. That I can tell you for 100%. If Vinny the Chin went to war with Carlo Gambino, both in their prime, who would win? Ooh, man. Probably Carlo Gambino. All right, why didn't Luciano kill Genovese after the problems he was causing? That's the question that boggles me. I don't know why Luciano didn't do it. I really don't. That would have been the first move. And in some ways, maybe not killing him and setting him up to take a drug pinch for the rest of his life was the better thing. All right, is it true Joe Bonanno could have had 100 zips in the streets with one phone call? Probably not. Maybe 40, but not 100. Was the commission trial afraid of Joe Bonanno? How come they never did anything to him? That's another question that vexes me. Why they didn't kill him after he wrote his book, I think has a lot to do with the fact that Carlo Gambino was already dead when he did it. Times had changed. But they probably should have. I mean, after he sort of dips out and refuses to answer questions as to wanting to kill the commission, I'm surprised they didn't kill him. I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe they thought he was talking. I don't know. I really don't. Now that Sonny Francis is dead, is Michael likely to have an accident? Oh, boy, that's a great one. That's a funny question. Now that Sonny Francis is passed, is Michael likely to have an accident? Nah, they're not going to touch Michael. Nobody wants nothing to do with that bum. All right, can you name me some members that were in the 5 Points gang? Sure. Johnny Torrio, Lucky Luciano, Al Capone, Frankie Yale, and Meyer Lansky. Now, that's going to do it for all the questions for today. I am going to take a short break, and when I come back, we are going to talk about the 2 of the 4 remaining infamous mob hits. And those mob hits would obviously be Albert Anastasia and Angelo Bruno. Stay tuned on Mob Talk Radio. We will be right fucking back. Michael Francis having a fucking accident. And welcome back to Mob Talk Radio. And we are going to cover 2 of the final 4 infamous mob murders of the group that we're talking about. The first one we're going to start with is Albert Anastasia. And look, there's several reasons and a lot of different conspiracy theories as to why Albert Anastasia was killed. And sometimes it's hard to kind of wade through the shit and get to the truth. But as I always try to do on this show, we're going to get to the brass tacks of it all. Anastasia was a loyal guy to a fault, but he had a few hang-ups, like murdering people at whim. Anastasia was incredibly valuable to the mob, especially in the early days. With Anastasia, if you spoke about a murder, or you even talked about a murder, or even suggested a murder in front of him, he would have you killed. He was an old-school guy that valued keeping your fucking mouth shut, and that was just the rule. You didn't utter shit around Albert, or he would pretty much put you out of your misery. He would get his early power from in the early days, really from being the head of the ILA in Brooklyn, and he would control a half a dozen chapters. Even though prior to the Castellamare War, he aligned himself with Joe Masseria, Anastasia was the type of guy that was always open to whatever could propel him to sort of the top of the food chain. Whatever Anastasia thought of the hit on Masseria, really, he sort of gets over that really quick. And he needed to, because he had to realize that what was going on. The only benefit to him, I mean, what's the benefit? Okay, you kill Masseria, I'm going to go crazy and start killing you. It was survival of the fittest, and I think that he had sort of an objective mind frame when it came to, well, it is what it is. I've got to do what I've got to do. But he ends up getting arrested in 1932 for murder, and it's worth noting that in this alleged murder, he used an ice pick to kill the guy. Ah, jeez. I don't know why I laugh at stuff like that. Luciano and Costello heard about the murder charges, and they ended up going and paying off witnesses. And there's a big reason to why they did that. One, Albert Anastasia was a killer. They knew it, and it was better to have him with them. And it was just trying to keep a guy out of a jam. A year later, he actually gets indicted again for murder, and sort of the same thing happens. Witnesses don't remember shit. They go suddenly blind. You know how it works. And Luciano was widely responsible for taking care of that. And for Albert, them helping him out of a jam makes it easier or more palatable to him to just look past the Masseria bullshit. So Luciano brings Anastasia into the fold, and he names him head of Murder Incorporated along with Louis Lepke, Buckhalter. We've talked about that before. And the reason why they split control of Murder Inc. was basically very simple. There were Italians and Jewish guys in Murder Inc. Albert would oversee the Italian side of things. Louis Lepke would oversee the Jewish conglomerate of that. And it was really something that Meyer Lansky had argued that they should do because he wanted them to each be represented by their sides. That way you didn't have one sort of standing over top of the whole entire crew. And that's ultimately what Lucky Luciano decides to do. One of the first sanctions or murders, or one of the first sanctions of Murder Inc. And we say sanctions, what I mean is one of the first moments where Murder Inc. is sort of ordered to take care of something is when Dutch Schultz refuses to back off whacking Thomas Dewey. And Dewey was, first of all, a jerk-off, but he was a special prosecutor, and Dutch Schultz wanted to kill him. And Anastasia had heard that Schultz was pretty much telling everybody he was going to whack Dewey. So they end up having a meeting, and Schultz is told, let the shit go, bro. Let it go. It's not worth doing. It's going to bring too much heat. Schultz didn't want to hear that bullshit, and pretty much, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. He storms out of the fucking meeting. And as we can guess, Luciano kind of looks at Anastasia like, what the fuck? And that was all Luciano needed to do. And Schultz would be killed by Murder Inc., and that would be the end of Dutch Schultz. Anastasia would prove his loyalty to Lepke after Morris Diamond, who at the time was a Teamsters union official. And basically what he was trying to do was he was trying to stop Lepke from maintaining power in the garment district. He was a fucking goody two-shoes, no broken laws, all this kind of bullshit. And Anastasia is pretty much told about what the issue is, and he pretty much orders the death of Diamond immediately. Luciano eventually would end up going away to prison, and it was Anastasia who went to Lansky with the idea that if they could somehow get a deal with special prosecutors to get Luciano out of jail early, they should actually try to do that. And eventually what ends up happening is Anastasia would meet with the U.S. military and broker a deal for Luciano to get out. If they protected the docks and the seaports, they were very worried about the Nazis coming in. And a lot of people have said that they thought it was Meyer Lansky who was in charge of that, but it really wasn't. It was actually Albert Anastasia along with Meyer Lansky. So in 1951, the Kafoffer hearings begin, and at the time, Anastasia was the acting underboss in the Mangano crime family, and Anastasia really sort of recognizes a couple of things. He knows he's never really going to be able to take over as boss, which is what he wanted, as long as Mangano was in power. And it didn't help that Mangano and Anastasia didn't get along on any fucking level. Mangano's beef was he didn't like how close Anastasia was to Costello and Luciano, and he also didn't like the fact that Costello and Luciano were using Anastasia for murder and other things without his permission. And then there would be some other issues over money and proceeds from the docks, and that was enough for fucking Anastasia. Anastasia was doing all the heavy lifting for the family, and Mangano just wanted more money, and the move pretty much infuriates Anastasia, and so what happens? Mangano gets clipped. The same day that Mangano gets clipped, his brother Vinny goes missing, and he's found floating in Jamaica Bay. So Anastasia made his move. ultimately the commission didn't like it. They would send for Anastasia, and they would ask him pretty much what happened. And Anastasia says, look, these guys were going to fucking kill me, but I didn't do anything. I did nothing. And whereas I think they knew he did it, they really couldn't prove it. And it also helped that Frank Costello stood up for him and said, look, he wouldn't have done this. He's a good guy. He makes us a lot of money. We should make him boss. And that's exactly what happens. He's made boss. So in March of 1952, Anastasia does something that's really fucking epic. It's historical. Willie Sutton, he was a famous bank robber, and he was wanted by the FBI and the government. And Willie Sutton was beloved in New York City. Kind of like the bad guy, Robin. Everybody in their own cathartic way always cheers on the bad guy to some extent, right? So Willie Sutton's riding on a fucking train, minding his own business, and a piece of shit rat named Arnold Schuster sees Willie Sutton, and he goes and tells the police. Anastasia catches news of this. I don't know if it was by radio or by TV that he saw it, but he didn't like what Schuster did. And he just turned around and said, I want him killed immediately, and Schuster would be killed for his transgression. Not because Anastasia had any stock in what would happen to Willie Sutton. It was the principle of the matter. He was a rat, and he should be killed. And that's exactly what happened. And that move that Anastasia makes causes some eyebrows to begin to raise. As we know, because it was a high-profile thing. So as we know, Luciano and Genovese have problems. Genovese wants to take over. Luciano was refusing to budge. And Genovese knew without the support of people, he knew that without the support of somebody within Anastasia's crime family, that there's really probably no way that he could take over the Luciano crime family. It was just too risky. And it's also been said that he allegedly was terrified of Albert Anastasia. I don't know how accurate that is, but it may have been the case. I'm not sure. So Genovese ends up approaching Carlo Gambino, who at the time was Anastasia's underboss. Genovese had a simple plan, and that he would take out Anastasia, and, not a problem, I'll take care of it. But Carlo, in turn, has to sort of look away and allow Genovese to go after Costello. And that was the agreement. The understanding was simple. And also at the time, it's worth noting that the commission was a little bit pissed off with Anastasia, not only over the Willie Sutton thing, but because Anastasia had been complaining for months and months and months about drug profits that were coming out of Cuba. He wanted a bigger part of Cuba, and he wasn't getting it, and so he was sort of bellyaching about that. And he had felt that Meyer Lansky was hoarding all the money and all the rackets, so it presented a problem enough to sort of give the commission a palate that if Anastasia were to go, maybe they won't say nothing. And so, while the money is traveling in all different directions, everybody's getting wealthy, Anastasia just wanted more. Some felt that he might take a move on Lansky, which ultimately I really don't think he would have ever fucking done. But it was one of those things that guys talked about. And so, while Anastasia's running his crime family the way he wants, they just wanted him to simmer a little bit. Don't worry about the money, don't worry about this, but Anastasia, not that he was getting too big for his britches. I just think that there was a guy complaining about stuff. When you're making hand over fist and you're complaining about more and more and more, it creates resentment and problems. And so Genovese really uses that to his sort of advantage. And he starts to think, maybe the commission will look past all this because they were already a little bit pissed off with him. And Gambino, for whatever reason, goes along with the idea. But he always kept it sort of in the back of his mind that Vito Genovese was a complete snake. So Carlo's going to go along with it, agree to it, because on Carlo's end, he realizes that at his age, and Anastasia being relatively the same age, he's probably never going to take over the crime family. So there you go. That's the reason why he's going to get involved. And I think Carlo also knew that Genovese was pretty much shooting himself in the fucking prick. He was going to go ahead and he was going to do this, but Gambino ultimately on the back end would get what he wanted out of it and then make a move on Genovese, which is exactly the way that it sort of goes down in the end. And so we know that all of that transpired. So at the Park Sheraton Hotel Barbershop on October 25th of 1957, Anastasia's getting a shave. Two gunmen burst in. They shoot Anastasia dead in a hail of gunfire. And while Anastasia had a bodyguard who was posted literally outside, for some reason at that time when a bodyguard, when Anastasia gets hit, the bodyguard walks down the block to go get something. and it left Anastasia unprotected. So we can sort of build an assertion that maybe there was an inside guy that knew, hey, you might want to walk down a fucking block, go get a fucking hero. We're going to put some lead in this guy. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But as a result, Genovese ends up taking over. Carlo Gambino does, and then Genovese calls for the Appalachian meeting to announce that he is the boss of bosses, he's the boss, blah, 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 and we know how Appalachian goes down, and that's why Anastasia got hit. I think there's more of an emphasis, truly, at the end of the day, that Anastasia gets hit because Gambino wanted to take over. Can Gambino do that without fucking Vito Genovese? Absolutely not. But like we've said, Gambino and Costello and Luciano sort of got even with Genovese in the end. Okay, so we're going to talk about Angelo Bruno, and it's not very big because the complexities to why Angelo Bruno was killed is very, very fucking simple. And it's probably one of the most iconic passed around photos. Obviously, Angelo Bruno sitting in the passenger seat of a car with his fucking head exploded. And it's probably, like I said, one of the most easily understood mob hits of all time, and easily one of the most top 5 iconic hits of all time. So, while by most accounts, right, Angelo Bruno was an easygoing, gentle, soft-spoken guy. He was the type of guy that while he believed in murder, okay, he would prefer to mend issues with handshakes and agreements just to keep everybody content. Like I said, he wanted people to agree, more conciliatory versus being somewhat like Nicky Scarfo. And I don't think that he felt like murder was a good tactic to settle beefs. If people could agree, that was better for a crime family. And relatively, during Angelo Bruno's reign, things were very, very relatively peaceful. They weren't like fucking Nicky Scarfo taking Quaaludes with a machete in his hand. But ultimately, I think it's the tactic of Bruno not being wielding in the extent of being violent that ultimately put him in a very precarious position. So in 1959, Bruno takes over from Joe Ida, and for the next 21 years, he goes on a hell of a run. How does a guy who runs a crime family quietly and successfully end up on the corner of, end up on the cover of the Philadelphia Inquirer? How does his deep connections with Carlo Gambino allow that to happen without consequences? Those are some big questions. And look, Bruno was a lot of things. The one thing he wasn't was giving. He was a greedy guy. And maybe the totality of his greed isn't so bad as some others, but he was also loyal to probably some people that he really shouldn't have been. A lot of the problems stemmed from money. Let's be honest. It's as simple as that. Bruno typically, and there are people that are not going to like this, but I think that the synopsis or the thought process of guys on the street was that Angelo Bruno was putting other crime families ahead of his own. And that was what was going to start some shit. So he has a strict policy, no drug dealing. He meant it. He was serious about it. But he took money from it. So it's like, we've said it 100 times. You tell you guys, by the way, I know you guys are starving, you're hungry, you want to eat. Come on over to my house and hang out. He puts a turkey out and eats it all for himself and doesn't let guys eat. He didn't want guys dealing drugs, but he had no problem taking fucking drug money. And it's one thing to tell him not to do it. It's another to take profits from it. It's a hypocrite move. Then he sort of, for some fucking stupid reason, allows the Cherry Hill Gambinos to move into his territory, and they're selling drugs. So it's his turf, his territory. Oh, it's okay. You guys can sell drugs. I'll get my kickback. But then he tells his own guys they can't earn. And that's really what sort of creates a problem. It's like, it pissed off the apple cart. So many guys in the streets, and I'm not speaking for them, obviously I wasn't around them, but I think that the general consensus is that, Bruno is more in favor of the Gambino crime family than he is his own guys. Bruno didn't want violence. He just wanted money. And that's a great formula to like being a low key boss. But at some point the dam is going to burst on you. So in 1976, when it was announced that gambling is going to come to the Jersey Shore, a lot of guys thought, this is going to be a great money maker for the crime family. We're going to be able to move in all different directions. Everybody's going to get money. But Bruno, then begins to use his contacts in Pittsburgh to contract steel companies for the construction of the casinos for a huge kickback. So guys are looking at this like, this motherfucker is lying in his pockets again. And it sort of made him look like, you know, he had no problem taking all this kind of money, but other guys were starving. So it's widely been reported that Bruno refused to allow the 5 families in New York a cut of the Atlantic City casino action, but that's not true. He did, but the problem is that is Angelo Bruno's territory. That is Philadelphia's territory, and when you allow the other crime families to come in and take a piece of this, it just created distaste, dissension amongst the ranks. It just created problems. Not only could the guys not earn, but Bruno once again was showing that he'd allow other crime families to come into his territory and earn money, which directly took money out of the pockets of his own men, and they had enough. Specifically, Antonio Caponegro. So on March 21st of 1980, Bruno gets whacked sitting in the passenger side seat in front of his South Philadelphia row house. He gets plugged with a shotgun. His driver and bodyguard at the time, John Stanfa, was not hurt in the hit. And because John Stanfa was unhurt in the hit, it tells us 2 things. Either one, he was involved, or he did it himself. You know, I keep hearing from people that Stanfa's really the guy who pulled the trigger. And with obviously Carlo Gambino dead in 1976, I think that any retribution come in that direction, like immediately on a mass scale, was going to be slow going. But the one who obviously gets blamed for this is Antonio Caponegro, and obviously we know how he goes. He ends up dying for that transgression. And that move, the murder of Bruno, created a shitload of instability in South Philadelphia for the next decade or more. But like we see in a lot of these things, is that greed always results in murder. It didn't matter how good Angelo Bruno was to people, what a nice man he was in the fucking neighborhood. The bottom line is when guys want to earn money from drugs and they want to earn money and they want to feed themselves, they're gonna do stuff. I think if Carlo Gambino had been alive at the time, I really honest to God, don't think Antonio Caponegro would have tried that bullshit. But I don't know, and I don't think we ever will know. So that's exactly why Angelo Bruno got whacked. So, all that being said, we're going to get out of here for today. Next week, all new show. Threats, complaints, grievances, compliments, you know where to send them. Check us out on Facebook. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. And also on social media, just really quickly. A lot of people are sending me friend requests on Instagram. I don't always control my Instagram, so if you're sending me messages there, sometimes I'll check them myself. Sometimes I have them somebody else do something or check them for me. But I'm really not, I'm being very critical of who I allow on my Instagram, just for a lot of different reasons. You know, it is what it is. It's just like a buffering. So, you know, if for some reason I don't accept it, then there's a reason for it. Or somebody else, you know, I told them, don't let any of them, or let this one, let that one. So I don't have a lot of time to you know, I have time to post on Instagram, but I don't have a lot of time to interact with people. I just, between Facebook, just texting normal people and other shit, I don't have the time. So a lot of you have sent me messages, and I'm trying to get back to each of you as quick as I can, but there's, you know, you would think I have a lot more time to do this with the pandemic, but I don't, because I got a lot of other creative shit going on. So, all that being said, stay the fuck inside. Don't go outside. It's not worth getting a fucking Newport and getting something that's going to make you bleed from the eye sockets, armpits, and asshole. You know? All right, so stay safe, stay the fuck inside. I said that shit twice. Stay the fucking side. Okay, so that's 3 times. Once you say it 3 times, you know you're going to get beat if you do it again. So there you go. Everybody have a great week. We'll be back next week with an all-new show.